Welcome in, friends and lovers. It is a brand new edition of Catfish on Ice, episode 199, getting ever so much closer to that milestone episode 200. First of all, I just want to tell all of you, thank you so much for sticking with us through the first 199 episodes. It is Nashville Predators training camp. It's officially here. They're on the ice. Day 2 of camp is underway. And we're already seeing the speed and the new quickness of this lineup under head coach Andrew Burnett. This is your host, Chad Minton, running solo with you today. We have to find time any way we can these days to get the Catfish and Ice podcast episode out. And we're doing it today on this beautiful Friday. Getting ready for Predators preseason action on Monday, a doubleheader split squad action against the Florida Panthers. So we'll get ready for that. I'm going to unveil some of my things that I want to learn throughout the preseason from the Predators. Also going to hit some of the top training camp storylines and some veterans that I really want to highlight that are going to be leaders in this training camp process for the Predators. And also going to bring up the captain, Roman Josi. I feel like he's flying under the radar somehow, because so much has changed for this Predators team. And it's understandable. But with so much that has happened since March, when the trade deadline sell-off happened, and then with all the young players coming up who are making a name for themselves and everyone's so excited about them, it's just so easy to overlook the fact that we still have the captain, Roman Josi, one season removed from having a 96-point season. Want to discuss a list that I came across from Bleacher Report. You know, Bleacher Report always putting out all the lists that gets people talking, top 10 list. They did their ranking of the top 10 defensemen currently in the NHL. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later if you haven't already seen that list about where they ranked Roman Josi. I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger there if you haven't seen it already, but I'll give my thoughts on that. So we have a lot to get into. We are presented by DraftKings, promo code THPN. And of course, we're part of the Hockey Podcast Network. Very excited to bring this episode with you. First of all, I feel like we are coming out of the dark ages of the John Hines era, and no shade meant towards John Hines, but it's just the way it is. I mean, you're seeing the rejuvenation of the fans, the rejuvenation of the players. It just feels like a whole new, fresh, clean slate. And I've already said in previous episodes that with that is going to mean that there's going to be some growing pains. It's very likely that this team is going to maybe stumble a little bit out of the gate. We've talked about the first 10 games that the Predators are up against in the 2023-24 season. Go back and listen to that in our podcast archive, whether that's Spotify or on Google or on Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. Also hit up our YouTube channel where you can watch all of our episodes that we've done in the past. Catch up on all the stuff we've been talking about this past offseason. But we are here, folks. We are in training camp. We've already seen the speed on display. We've already seen some of these players get out there, and we're seeing different groups get out there together. And first thing I want to mention is let's not get drawn into what these line combinations are, which players are playing with which line mates. Right now, the coaches are literally just trying to tinker with everything they can and see what everything looks like. Do not draw any hasty conclusions on who is playing with who in which group or which line, even what the power play units look like. It's really a work and see, trial and error approach right now. A lot that the coaches have to do in a short amount of time before the Predators play the Tampa Bay Lightning on October 10th down here in the Bay, where I currently live now. And I got my tickets bought. Super excited about that. They're officially bought. And I will be there in attendance when the Predators start off the 2023-24 campaign with a really, really difficult opponent in the Tampa Bay Lightning. And even though the Lightning I guess you could maybe say had a little bit of a disappointing offseason. They're maybe not a dynasty anymore like you would think they were in the past. They're still going to be a tough team, and that is going to be a really difficult atmosphere to play in. So can't wait to be there in attendance for that. Let's get this started here. I want to first talk about the Preds training camp storylines. My top 3 training camp storylines. First thing I want to start off is, where do the veterans land in the lineup? We keep forgetting about the veterans because all the focus has been on the youth that's come up throughout this team in the last few years, and rightfully so. But this team has a healthy blend of veterans that are still going to be an integral part in the Predators returning to the postseason in 2024. And so let me go ahead and share on the screen with the big free agency acquisition that we all know about, and that is Ryan O'Reilly. Going to share his NHL career notes up to this point. So he is approaching 1,000 NHL games. Pretty incredible. And I mean, there it is right there. 991 career NHL games. Let's just put that on its surface right there. 991 career games. Is brutal as this sport is physically demanding as this sport is, to play in 991 games, coming up on 1,000 is no small feat. He's going to join a class of around 250 approximate players in NHL history who have crossed the 1,000-game threshold. He leads most career games played on this current Predators team. Pretty significant addition. And Barry Trotz and his media availability that you can see on the team's official website really broke it down, that really a significant reason why Ryan O'Reilly was acquired is because he is going to be able to lead these younger players who still have a lot of growth ahead of them. And I thought that was so cool to read that, because Barry Trotz gets it. He sees the overall long game picture here. And you can't just throw all these young players to the wolves and smash their confidence, because as Barry Trotz said in a lot of his quotes in that media availability, he made it very clear that you can't. These players need veterans to learn from, and you've got to have a mix of both. And if you just throw players like he mentioned, Cody Glass in particular, if you just throw Cody Glass out there and for 82 games, he's got to go against the Connor McDavids of the world every game, and he's got to go against players like that on elite levels that are going to be thrown at you game after game after game. It's going to really, really shatter the confidence of some of these younger players. So you need a Ryan O'Reilly in your lineup to be that leader. And O'Reilly seems like a player who's going to take that in stride, wants that role. So it's so cool to see him in training camp right now for the Predators and see him out there in a Pred sweater. So cool to see. O'Reilly's, this is his 5th NHL team, if you count the Predators. He previously played with Colorado, Buffalo, St. Louis, and Toronto. Of course, we know with St. Louis, he won the Stanley Cup for that team, broke the Stanley Cup drought for that team. For the St. Louis Blues in 2019, got his Stanley Cup, won the Conn Smythe Trophy as well for playoff MVP with the Blues. That's the crowning achievements of his NHL career, but he's always been a leader. He was a good point producer in a very short amount of time with the Maple Leafs, showed up for them on the playoff stage, even though the Maple Leafs did go out in the second round. They did finally get over the hump and win in the first round. So that's what we're getting with Ryan O'Reilly. You know, it's not so much about, is he going to pile up all of the points when it comes to like 60, 70 points? Most likely not. But his intangibles and what he's going to do on the ice is very, very important. And so with that, you look at that, those are some of his career notes. And how is he going to fit in this lineup? He's probably going to be on the top line. He's going to be on a power play unit, you would think. And you just love to have him here. He's going to be the de facto replacement of the Matt Duchene buyout. Will he score at the same rate and the same clip as Matt Duchene did? Maybe not, but his intangibles might outweigh possibly what Matt Duchene was doing for this team. And O'Reilly does other things in his game that Matt Duchene wasn't as strong at. And then, of course, Ryan Johansson as well. He can be kind of an effective replacement of both of them in a way. And so with that, that's a player that obviously we all have eyes on, is Ryan O'Reilly. And as the Nashville Predators training camp is underway, let's move along here with another player, another veteran that is very, very important with what's going on here at Nashville Predators training camp. And that is a player who's been with the Predators for his entire NHL career, aside from being drafted by the Washington Capitals, but he's played every game of his NHL career for the same team. And that is Filip Forsberg, the triumphant return of Filip Forsberg. Really excited about that, obviously, that he is back after sustaining such a really scary and ugly head injury in February. He is back. It's great to see. And we're watching how he looks on the ice, because there's rust to be shook off. There's a process where he hasn't been on the ice in 6 months now, 7 months really. Yeah, and so he's got to ease his way back in, and it's going to take some time, as we all know. But with Forsberg, a lot of fans are, I don't know, I'm getting a sense that a lot of fans are down on Forsberg. Like, they all wanted to keep him when he first was being rumored to hit free agency, and thought that the Predators were going to lose him in free agency. Fans were freaking out, including myself, that Forsberg was going to be lost for nothing in free agency. And whether you like it or not, 8-year deal, went by the market value to get him to stay in Nashville. He showed loyalty to the franchise by sticking with them. The all-time leading goal scorer for the Predators. So you have that, 239 career goals. So we're all looking to see if Filip Forsberg can just quickly get back into action and shake the rust off and really become at least partially what he was in 2021-22. And let's remember this, and I've shared this before on the show. Despite the injury last year, Forsberg was actually at a point per game pace. His point efficiency was one of the best of his career up to that point. It wasn't the best, but it was close. He was performing at a pretty good level. So with that, you got to wonder, just like with Roman Josi, not to the same exact comparison, but just like Roman Josi, can Filip Forsberg even be like 75% worth what he was in 2021-22? Can he be a 60 to 70 point scorer? That's kind of my sweet spot for Filip Forsberg, is can he be in the 60 to 70 point range? That's really important for me when it comes to Filip Forsberg. Let's see if he can do that. Let's see if he can show the leadership with that. And I came across a crazy stat that I didn't even realize, wasn't even looking for it, wasn't expecting it. But Filip Forsberg was drafted in 2012 draft class. A very, very weak draft class. I will say that. I'll preface by saying that. But still, very, very unexpected. I didn't realize this. I hadn't looked at anything like this in a while to see. But you can look and see each draft class and who has the most points in each draft class up to this date. And yes, Filip Forsberg has the most points out of the entire 2012 NHL draft class, 511 career points. Next closest is Tomas Hertl of the San Jose Sharks, and behind him, Morgan Rielly. So even if it is a weak draft class, you know what? That is pretty cool. And once again, we will reference the fact that trade that to get Filip Forsberg from the Capitals for Martin Erat, who is an all-time great Nashville Predator. No one's taken that away from Martin Erat, but obviously was way after the prime of his career. You unload Martin Erat to get Philip Forsberg in that trade. Probably one of the best moves that David Poile ever made as Predators general manager. And he is the all-time leading point scorer so far of the 2012 NHL draft class with 511 points. So obviously more to come from Forsberg. Let's see what he can do here in training camp. And then let's just move along here from that. Those are my two veterans that we're really looking for. Of course, on the defensive side of things, Luke Schenn comes in here as a free agency addition as well. And a lot of people are saying he's going to be alongside Roman Josi. So that's going to be really cool to watch. Let's see what kind of action he gets in the preseason and whatnot. And of course, we will find out more about that. Luke Schenn is a player that I wasn't expecting to get signed at all, but the fact that he did, and now that he's here, got to be excited about that. So with that, the Preds defensive core is something we're really going to have to figure out here with 6 spots up for grabs, and there's an odd man out, whether it's Alexander Carrier, Dante Fabro, Jeremy Lauzon. It comes down to those 3, and that's because of the addition of Luke Schenn, who's not going to be an odd man out. So is it Dante Fabro? Is it Alexander Carrier, who just got re-signed? All these guys got re-signed over the offseason to 1-year deals. Fabro and Carrier are both re-signed to a 1-year deal and will be free agents in 2024. So a lot to prove for those players. Barry Trotz says every player in training camp has something to prove, which is correct, but way more so than any of the others. Dante Fabro is probably the player who has the most, in my opinion, to prove in Preds training camp. All right. With that, let's move along here to Roman Josi and this list that I dangled in front of you at the beginning of the episode. Bleacher Report released their top 10 defensemen going into the 2023-24 season. And for once, a national list from one of these national syndicates does not throw any disrespect towards a Nashville Predators player. If anything, they probably were overly generous to a Predators player. But we're about to discuss it. They rank Roman Josi number 4 in their top 10 defenseman list. I was really surprised to see Josi that high because I've actually seen plenty of other lists. You see them all throughout the offseason. All these accounts put their rankings out there. It gets all the fans heated up and debating with each other. It gets engagement up. It's great. It's awesome. Everyone loves to do it. We've done it on this show before, and it's always fun to do your rankings. And to see Josi at number 4 when I've seen Josi even not in a top 10 list before, which I think is also just insane and not right. But to see Josi at number 4, although I love it and I'm not against it, I was very surprised. So here's the full list from Bleacher Report. Number 1, no shock, Cale Makar. I have no issue with that. Number 2, Adam Fox. Also have no issue with that. Mainly because Makar and Fox are literally in the primes of their career. The best is probably yet to come from these two players, and they are the next generation of the golden age of NHL defensemen as the game continues to change, and you see all these defensemen become more offense-oriented, and in some ways, and in many ways, Roman Josi laid an early blueprint to some of these up-and-coming defensemen who really lean more on their offensive game and speed and rushing the play up the ice. And, Josi had sometimes it's fair criticism, but Josi has been criticized for lacking on the defensive end at times because he pushes the offense so much. He gets caught up ice at times. He's definitely more of an offensive defenseman than a defensive defenseman. Through the years, he's tried to become a more well-rounded defenseman. I mean, just to think that his 96-point season, he came second in the Norris Trophy voting behind Cale Makar. Actually got more first-place votes than Cale Makar in that voting, but total points in the voting process, Cal McCarr inched him out by 25 votes. So with that, Roman Josi has laid a blueprint out. Because when he started coming up, became Preds captain for the 2017-2018 season, which was the season that the Predators won the President's Trophy. And ever since then, he has become the face of this franchise, especially after the retirement of Pekka Rinne. He is hands down the face of the franchise. I know a lot of people would like to throw UC Saros in there as the face of the franchise. You can argue either one, 1A, 1B. I'm cool with that. But either way, Roman Josi is definitely the face of the franchise, and he still is. This is what I'm getting to. Can Josi, does he still have the skills, and is he still somewhat able to hang with this younger generation of defensemen that are coming up behind him? I think that he can. And the fact that he's only one season removed from putting up 96 points in a John Hines system should tell you all you need to know. Do I think that he's going to sniff a 90-plus point season again? Probably not. Likelihood of that, very, very low. But do I think he can hit 60 to 70 points again? Do I think he can possibly outdo that and be 70-plus points and be in the conversation for another Norris Trophy consideration? There's a chance. The problem I have with that is not that he doesn't have the skills or he's not good enough to be that type of defenseman. The talent pool of defensemen these days is so deep, and this list really proves it, is why I think that the odds are still low that Josi will join Erik Karlsson, who just won his second career Norris Trophy this past season. The odds are probably still, unfortunately, low that Josi will win his second career Norris in his career. It's just a really tough award to win, especially now with so many great defensemen. So let's finish off the list here. So Josi comes in at number 4. Number 5 is Erik Karlsson. Number 6, this one surprised me at number 6. No offense, but Dougie Hamilton comes in at number 6. Number 7 is Quinn Hughes. Number 8, Miro Heiskanen. Number 9, Victor Hedman. And number 10, Rasmus Dahlin. So, all right. Dougie Hamilton at number 6, I think that's a total reach, and it's recency bias. Dougie Hamilton hit 74 points this past year, by far his career high at age 30. Before that, he had never sniffed 60 points in a season, was mostly a 40 to 50 point scorer. And although I realize that it's not just about how many points you score in a season for who's the best defenseman, I'm totally on board with that. But that's how the voters usually vote, is based all on offense. Whoever is the best offensive defenseman gets the award, usually. And, there's been all these arguments that it should be an offensive award for a defenseman and a defensive award for a defenseman. But until that happens, your Norris Trophy mainly goes to the best offensive defenseman. So a little bit of recency bias here in Bleacher Report's top 10, if you ask me. I don't think Dougie Hamilton should be all the way up at number 6 and be ahead of Victor Hedman, Miro Heiskanen, or Rasmus Dahlin. Definitely not ahead of Miro Heiskanen. Miro Heiskanen should be in the top 5 on this list. And I would even argue that if you're taking anyone out of the top 5, it would be maybe even Charlie McAvoy, and I would put Miro Heiskanen. That's how much high regard I have for Miro Heiskanen. He is due to win a Norris Trophy. He would not shock me at all if he claims his first Norris Trophy this upcoming season. I actually predicted him to win his Norris Trophy this past year in our before last season when we did our awards prediction on this show. I picked Miro Heiskanen, and he didn't win it, but I still feel the same way about Miro Heiskanen. So I can't believe that he's all the way back at number 8 on Bleacher Report's top 10 list and behind Dougie Hamilton. Just that doesn't make sense. Victor Hedman all the way back at number 9 is also a huge shock. Normally Hedman gets all the bias from all the media outlets, and rightfully so, because he is one of the best defensemen of Roman Josi's generation. He is near the same age as Roman Josi. He's got the Stanley Cups to back it up for himself with the Lightning, but he is a great all-around defenseman. I'm shocked to see him all the way back at number 9. Rasmus Dahlin for the Buffalo Sabres, I would think that he'd be higher than 10, maybe ahead of Quinn Hughes, maybe ahead of Dougie Hamilton. And then, of course, with Erik Karlsson at number 5, might be recency bias as well because he just exploded for all the points that he had and won the Norris Trophy this past season. So very shocked to see Josi at number 4, but it does go to show you how much respect and how much belief that some people in the league still have for Josi. Let's see what he can do. Let's see. I thought the Predators took out of all the injuries they suffered down the stretch of last season, trying to hang in the playoff race. I think that the biggest injury to overcome that they just couldn't overcome was when they lost Roman Josi. So outside of maybe UC Saros, Roman Josi is definitely the most valuable player of this team. Even now, with all these newcomers on the team, it's Roman Josi. So let's see what he has in store for us in this upcoming season. As Roman Josi is 8th among active defensemen in career points with 601 career points, 8th among defensemen. So let's see what happens here. I think he still has a little gas left in the tank, probably another 3 or 4 years before he might start really seeing a dip in production, but definitely has it still in him for this upcoming year. All right, let's move along here. Episode 199 of Catfish on Ice presented by DraftKings. We have a brand new offer for you here, folks. NFL fans, we're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. NFL season is in full swing, everybody. We're already in week 3. We just had Thursday night football, and the San Francisco 49ers got the win over the New York Giants. So now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets with this upcoming week 3 action of the NFL. Throw 5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner, and DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football is more fun when you're in on the action. So download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available. For problem gambling, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. License partner, Golden Nugget Lake, Charles, Louisiana. 21 and up. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. All right. Episode 199 rolls on here for Catfish on Ice podcast. Episode 199 with your host, Chad Minton. All right. About to get ready for the preseason doubleheader split squad action with the Florida Panthers. And that's going to be coming up on this Monday, September 25th. And with the split squads, I think that the first thing we should keep in mind is that we shouldn't read too much into line combinations. And I'm going to be more focused on individual play, regardless of what line they may be on. So with that, this split squad, I'm really going to be more focused on the roster bubble players and the younger players who are trying to earn themselves a spot on this team to really impress the coaches, impress the new head coach, Andrew Burnett. That is what this split squad action against the Florida Panthers is going to be about for me, is which one of these young players really sticks out the most, whether that's Igor Afanasyev, Spencer Stastny on defense, Luke Evangelista, although I think Evangelista is very, very safe in being a starter on opening night in Tampa. I do think that Evangelista has more to prove in terms of can he make it onto the top line, which I would love to see. I've been very vocal about that. Can Luke Evangelista make it on to the top line for the Predators in opening night in Tampa. That'd be a huge, huge nod from the coaching staff and really show a lot of confidence if Evangelista, who is going to be a rookie, even though he did make his NHL debut this past season, he's technically going to be a rookie this year. So if he gets top line minutes right out of camp, that means that he had a strong camp and he really impressed the coaches. So how's he going to look in this doubleheader against the Panthers in the preseason? Also, when it comes to who plays in net, you would expect Yaroslav Askarov to get a start in this split squad. I'd be surprised if he didn't. So I want to see how that shapes up the continued development for Askarov in actual preseason action. He saw action in the prospect showcase, which unfortunately the prospects did go 0-3, but again, not worried about that. I'm more worried about, are these players developing? Are these players learning this new system? That's what Milwaukee Admirals head coach Carl Taylor talked about. Even though the team did lose all 3 games, a lot of it was self-inflicted errors and just critical mistakes that you can't make. A lot of penalties, having to kill a lot of penalties. So you're obviously rolling that over into these preseason games. Same idea. Yeah, you want to win these games. You like to win. Winning feels nice. But really, it's about, are the players grasping the message that this coaching staff is bringing? A lot of learning has to happen. Even with the veterans, a lot of learning has to happen. You're talking about these players who played under John Hines for the past few years. Not only are they having to learn a new head coach's system, and it's a very different system than John Hines' system, but they're having to learn new line mates as well, both from the young players and the free agency acquisitions. So there's a lot that has to be figured out and ironed out in a very, very short amount of time before October 10th gets here. And you got to open it up against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Not easy. So split squad action against the Florida Panthers. I'm just looking for progress. I'm looking for improvement. I'm looking for focusing on the little things, the things that you can control, whether it's not taking a really bad penalty in the third period when you're in a tie game. Can the players learn from those mistakes and avoid those mistakes? And how quickly can they grasp the offensive system that Andrew Burnett's employing here, which is speed, which is quickness, which is, the players are talking about how fun this system is, right? That's what we're looking for. How loose do the players look right out of the gate, or do they look a little tight out there? Do they make some of these mistakes? Do they have a hard time getting used to the system? I expect that they are going to take some time. I would not be surprised if when they play the Panthers in this doubleheader, that there's a lot of choppiness, like there's a lot of mistakes. The passing's probably going to be a little off. They're going to have a hard time figuring out who's going to be where. And it's going to take some time. And then if the Predators are lucky enough to get a bunch of power play opportunities, can they show progress from the first power play chance that might be a little shaky? And can they start grasping it? And can they start showing some fluidity? I do think that we will get a little window into what Andrew Burnett's thinking when it comes to the power play units, because that's a little bit of a thing that you can zero in on quicker. Figure out, who is going to be on these power play units, who's going to play with who. That's going to be a fun thing to watch in these first preseason games against the Panthers. And then third pairing defensemen. I mean, you've got a lot of options here. I just mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, most notably with Dante Fabro. Can he have a really strong preseason? Is that going to be enough to get him a start over Jeremy Lauzon or even over Alexander Carrier? I mean, it's really, really going to take a lot to figure out there. So with that said, the younger players, of course, coming in, you're going to see some mistakes there as well. But you're trying to figure out, where's Juuso Parssinen going to be at? Where's Tommy Novak going to be at? Where's Philip Tomasino going to be at? I mean, they're all players that you think are going to be in the starting lineup more than likely, but where are they going to be at? What wing are they going to play on? It's just all up in the air. We really don't know that. This is what the preseason is for here. This is why this preseason has got so much intrigue around it, more so than past years, is because it feels so new and it feels so fresh. Like we just took the Nashville Predators out of the box and it has that fresh smell to it. That's what it feels like, because we just don't know what Andrew Burnett's thinking. And he might not even know what he's thinking yet. This is what these preseason games are for sure. And so, how will he build the split squads? First of all, who does he want playing with who? That'll give you a little bit of an idea of what lines he's thinking of, at least at the start. And then, if it looks really good in these preseason games, then he might stick with it, or he might shake it all up and try something different and then choose which looked better. I think it could go either way there. But like, is he wanting to mix one line up with nothing but the younger players, or is he wanting to mix veterans with the younger players? I think that's a big distinction we're going to need to make there. Is he going to keep Tomasino on a line with Cody Glass and Tommy Novak, or is he going to try to mix in a Gustav Nyquist to play on a line with Cody Glass or Juuso Parssinen? Like, that's what we all have to figure out here. There's a logjam at center with Glass, Novak, Parssinen. You would like to be a center as well. Tomasino used to play center, but he's kind of evolved into being more of a winger. So a lot to sort out here, but that's what makes this fun. That's what makes this preseason so interesting. But definitely don't get caught up on the wins and losses. It's not really about that as much. It's about, do the Predators show improvement throughout the preseason? Do they show improvement from this split squad, which I expect to be a little bit of a mess and not completely smooth? And then you're going up against a Panthers team that just went to the Stanley Cup, and they're a little bit more set in what they're doing than the Predators are. So don't be surprised at all if the final score maybe looks a little lopsided and maybe it looks a little shaky, and you're just going to have to be patient. But can we show improvement into the next preseason game, which will be against the Tampa Bay Lightning? Just show gradual improvement leading up to the season opener. That's what I'm hoping for more than anything else. Want to finish off this quick episode on Catfish and Ice, episode 199, with this. Episode 200 is coming. It's going to be a milestone episode. Rich Howe will be with me. We're also working on getting a couple guests coming up for the week. Working on getting a Tampa Bay Lightning beat reporter on the show as well. I'll give you more information on that as the week unfolds, as we come up on a time slot. But look for it on our YouTube channel, the Catfish and Ice YouTube channel, and hit subscribe. Look for it there. We will release the full interview previewing the regular season opener against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll preview it with our guest from the Tampa Bay Lightning media scene. We will share that interview fully on the YouTube channel before it actually drops on the podcast platforms. So then it gives you all the more reason to sign up for notifications and subscribe to the Catfish and Ice YouTube channel. But we will hold that back for now because we're not sure if we're going to get that guest on or not. Also, we're working on a bi-weekly guest to join the show every other week throughout the season. So stay tuned for that. We're also working on merchandise, working on all that. But definitely episode 200 is going to be a milestone episode for the show. Rich Howe and myself will do a live stream episode for that occasion. So stay tuned for that. Let's go ahead and wrap it up with this really weird, odd story, but we have to touch on it. I have to touch on it at least. The Mike Babcock situation. We knew it was a really weird and ugly hire when it happened by the Columbus Blue Jackets. It was a weird match, in my opinion. I didn't see why they went out and got Babcock. It was going around the same time when the Predators were being rumored to move on from John Hines, and they were going to be looking for a new head coach. And you were seeing these lists of head coaching candidates, and every time you come across Mike Babcock, it's like, no, thank you. Stay away from that. But the Columbus Blue Jackets decided to go get Mike Babcock. You know, the Blue Jackets are one of the most young prospect pool teams in the league. They've got so much talent. The future, the distant future, looks very bright for the Blue Jackets. And that's why going and hiring Mike Babcock as your head coach to begin with was just a really weird match and didn't make sense. And it turns out Babcock's not going to even coach a game for the Blue Jackets, because this story first surfaced from the Spit and Chicklets podcast. And, of course, everyone's got their opinion on the Spit and Chicklets podcast. A lot of people don't like them, and I get that, and it's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But you saw this media clash between people fighting over who found it first. They were trying to say it was all nonsense, but Spit and Chicklets is saying we're a players podcast, and then you start hearing from Johnny Gaudreau and stuff saying that it's not much of anything, but it turns out the story had some life to it, and eventually some of the truth at least comes out, and Mike Babcock resigns as head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and it's all centered around the younger players on the Blue Jackets squad did not feel comfortable with a lot of the tactics that Babcock was doing, including possibly reportedly going to a player's house and actually confiscating that player's phone and looking through it. So just things that in this day and age you just can't do, and when you're a head coach of a team, you've got to, or a manager in any line of work, you got to connect with your entire staff. Not just everyone's different. You got to lead everyone the same way. You got to make sure you connect with everyone in a certain way. And Babcock just couldn't do it, and he had to resign. I saw that it was more or less he was doing it to not be a distraction to the Blue Jackets. I think we're going to see a lot more on this story as the time unfolds. There's a lot we don't know about this story, but just really strange. Really is unfortunate for the Blue Jackets because it's just another speed bump and another distraction when you're getting ready to start a season. And so weird story there. Wanted to touch on it, but I want to end my thoughts on that whole thing with the media battle. And it's just dumb. I mean, I just give credit where credit's due. No one's saying you have to agree with everything the Spit and Chicklets podcast does, or no one's saying that you have to love them or you have to respect them. But when someone is covering a story or breaks a story, and you can't just completely throw it out in the garbage just because you don't like that outlet. You got to give everything its due course, and then let everything come out, and then give credit where credit's due. Doesn't mean you got to like the people who broke the story, but you still give credit where credit's due. So a lot of just dumb back and forth from media who don't like each other, which is just ridiculous. Cover the story, put out the facts, and let everything else go. We're talking hockey here. It doesn't have to be personal. So with that said, that's going to be episode 199 of Catfish and Ice with your host, Chad Minton. Thank you for joining me on this quick solo episode with Nashville Predators training camp underway. Hope to get you a couple guest interviews throughout this coming week as we get closer and closer to the opening of 2023-24. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate all of you and love all of you. Take care and have a great weekend.